Welcome to another episode at my channel. OK, we're concerned with well-being and especially interested in psychology, spirituality and science. Often these three are interwoven. For example, when we question ourselves in relation to the world, the meaning of our life, we need to concern ourselves with how things work, how our body works, how the universe works, and then consider where we come from, the origin of the universe, how we work within the universe. And then some of us may go into spirituality, the spiritual side of who we are, what our life means, where we come from, where we're going, and also ourselves in relation to something beyond our being, the universe, nature, a goddess, a god, or our own liberation from cycles that we find ourselves in our life, to find a state of happiness, joy, calm, tranquility, and then to be able to live a good life. So we often find that philosophy, which concerns, for example, morality, virtues, honesty, decency, friendliness, kindness, qualities in order to deal with problems and to face up and to overcome problems. We'll look at ways and means, in philosophy. And then often, we turn that into Christian virtues, which have hope, faith, and charity. So faith in something beyond ourselves, hope in that there is more to ourselves than what we immediately see around us. So we're crossing over from ethics and morals and virtue. We then can find that in a spiritual religion as well. And then we can look at the science as well, which comes to play of how this amazing, wonderful world operates. And that again can help our psychology, because the more we appreciate, I always say how our mobile phone can send a photograph, 20,000 miles in 1 second, how we can trap light traveling at 186,000 miles a second, which is the speed of light, how plants can turn water, carbon and sunlight into sugar. Just, go on and on and on and on. So I just want to say quickly that we at my website, I was going to say my channel, concerned with spirituality, psychology and science. Let's look at where we're going to go today. We're going to go into a Buddhist idea. Now remember, the Buddhist, Buddha, the word Buddha means, literally, it's a Sanskrit word from India, meaning to be awake, to be aware. And in their sense, they mean to be awoken and aware to the true reality and of existence. And Buddhism is very concerned with what we would call psychology, what non-Buddhists call psychology. Ways and means to reduce anxiety, to reduce stress, which indeed psychiatrists and psychologists are now, using this mindfulness approach. Call it vipassana. You may have heard of vipassana. So even psychology, is never independent of spirituality, because now in modern psychology we're using spiritual ideas, namely well-being in terms of mindfulness, vipassana, how to calm and still the mind. The Buddhist wheel of life, so we're talking about Buddhism. Buddhism, as I said, means to be awake and aware of how your body works, the nature of reality, the marks of existence, and how to overcome a lot of suffering that you may personally have, or I have experienced and still have, because we're not never completely free, because we must live in the world, right? So how do we find happiness, peace of mind, well-being, and a meaningful life, something that means something? How do we get direction? Buddhism has, finally get there, it has an idea, it has a diagram. And the diagram is called the Wheel of Life. Now that's a big one, the Wheel of Life. It's a diagram we're going to show you now. Its translation of, in Sanskrit, its original title is called the Bhava Chakra. And the Bhava means becoming, and chakra means wheel, so it's a wheel of becoming. So when it's called the Wheel of Life, it's actually a diagram to show how some of our problems and anxieties can arise in the world, and how to disengage and let go with many of the seeds which cause us to be unhappy. That's a pretty profound thought. It's not alone to Buddhism, but Buddhism really goes into this, and also Hinduism. Please remember that the Wheel of Life ideas are interwoven with Hindu thought and thinking and share a very common ground. Let's get into it. Now, this is the center of the Wheel of Life. Okay? So when we say the Wheel of Life, we're talking about the Wheel of Becoming. And the Wheel of Becoming is, like I said, how we can generate, free ourselves, and to awaken, under Buddhist, to be awoke and awaken and free ourselves from many of the things that bind us to problems and bind us to cyclical problems, like the famous, I always say, the hamster on a wheel. The hamster is running on the wheel, and it doesn't know how to get off the wheel. It's a very good analogy to look at when we consider the Wheel of Becoming. It's called a wheel because it's shaped like a wheel. You may know a wheel, in a normal wheel, the old-fashioned wheel anyway, you'd have spokes. See these spokes? In the center you'd have a hub, it's called the hub, and the spokes. So it's called a wheel because it looks like a wheel, but in fact a better interpretation would be cycles of becoming, that we are bound within cycles that hopefully we can break free from. Buddhism has a simple idea called the Trilaksana, which means the three marks of our existence. We'll come back onto this in a second. We have dukkha, which means suffering, that there is suffering in the world around us. We die, we become ill, we become unhappy, we become depressed. We talk about suffering. It doesn't about joy, but it's about suffering. It's called one of the laksanas. And then another one would be the impermanence of the world around us. We often try to construct things and make our lives secure and safe, but life always evolves. It's always changing. You know, is tomorrow the sun will go down tonight, and tomorrow the sun will come up. The moon is going around the earth, and the earth and the moon are going around the sun. We live in a universe that's constantly changing and evolving. So we are naturally, we breathe air, we have patterns, you know, we are a waking state, a sleeping state, a dreaming state. We are bound within rhythms of the universe. You can think of probably many others. You know, hunger, eat, defecate, hunger, eat. You know, we're bound to cycles. So the second mark is the impermanence in Buddhism. There are three qualities, right? So the second is called anicca in Sanskrit. It's a lovely word, anicca, which means impermanence. And the third mark is anatman, which anatman means that our self, our being, is not defined by the physical world, things that we own, our possessions. Our being is independent of labels that we attach to ourselves and jewelry that we buy and the type of clothes that we wear. We form an identity of who ourselves, but ultimately we are free, according to this thinking, of material possessions that we have. They say that if you're living in a castle or a palace, you're the same person as you're living in a shelter, a sleeping bag, or a hut. Whether you have rich clothes or poor clothes on, you are intrinsically the same. You're not defined by the physical nature of the world you have. You're defined by your, it's a windy day. You're not defined, there you go, that's changed. It was there, but it's permanent, but it ain't. So we're defined, these are called the three marks of existence. Dukkha, the world has suffering in it. 2, impermanence, that things are impermanent in the world. And 3 is anatman, which means that our true self is not defined by the impermanence of phenomenal existence, they call it. When they say phenomenal existence, what they mean is that things around us are ephemeral, they're changing all the time. I'll give you a little example. So if I have this apple and I leave the apple there for a day, a week, a month, a year, and then after, you know, the apple is only a temporary state. It will not remain an apple, be an apple in a week, or 2 weeks, or 3 weeks. It'll biodegrade and become the seeds, so hopefully to regenerate a new apple tree to have your new fruit. So fruit, wine, all evolving. We live in an ever-changing world. As the Greek philosopher Herodotus said, he said, Panta rei, everything is flux, everything is flow. Find that a lot in, you remember? Find that a lot in Taoism, and you have their yin and yang to illustrate the cyclical change. So this wheel of life diagram illustrates these qualities, and it also it illustrates how negative and things can arise. It's quite complex. So this idea is that we live in cycles. We're bound, we're trapped, we're enslaved to perpetual cycles of existence. The solution, they say, is to free yourself from being chained from these cyclical rhythms, to free yourself, to find yourself, to be independent of suffering, of pain, of things that are changing around you all your life that you can't maintain, but you're centrally, fundamentally individual person. You're a being. You're a great self. And if you want to, yourself is bound by something that goes beyond when your physical body passes away. Your self continues, which there's an old-fashioned word they call the soul. Your soul is the bit of you that is your self and your being, and which carries on after the death of your physical body. You don't need to go into the soul too much now. So there is a solution to this wheel of life, and there is like a formula, a recipe, a remedy, and how to escape. And they're called the Four Noble Truths. In Sanskrit, there's a wonderful word, I'll try to remember it, but it's called the Katya Varyaya Tani. Got it. Katya Varyaya Satanya. Even better. That's the one. Which means the Four Noble Truths. They are similar to the Marxist system, but they are, the world has a lot of suffering in it. And suffering arises by the things we do, the things we consume, the way we interact with the world around us. That's called arudaya in Sanskrit. It's called arudaya, which means the arising of phenomenal existence. Now then, Buddhists have a way of, they call it nirodha. And nirodha means to blow out. So extinguish the flames which cause the problems that we have. Stress, anxiety, the meaning of life, believing that we are what we physically own and possess and buy and consume. So this is called nirodha. Nir means to, it's a negation, if you like, in Sanskrit, nir. And rodha means to blow out. They often talk about a candle. You light a candle. You can light an incense stick, but you light a candle and you blow it out. So imagine each candle suffering, pain, believing that you are a part of the physical world when you're independent. Your being is free from the material world. Blow that candle out, the illusion. Blow out. I wish I had a candle actually to illustrate my idea, a didactic tool. So you can blow out about greed, blow out that candle. You have hatred, blow out that candle. You have tune out of the noise if you can. I always hope that I can send that police car away quickly. The thief, the robber, isn't below me right here. Patience. Kasanti. He stopped. Give me 1 second, I'm going to pause. Be right back. Looking at my clock, I should speed things up. So the fourth noble truth, the truth is that the magga, the way, there is a way forward. There is a way that we can escape from the suffering, from the impermanence of life, from the delusion of the material world around us. So it's called the magga, the way. So let's repeat those before we move on to this. We have suffering, there is suffering in the world, we accept the world is not perfect. Second, that things arise, phenomenal material things in our lives can arise and generate unhappiness with us, with other people, with communities, with countries. And then we have nirodha. The truth is that if we can blow out these problems, extinguish the problems, let go, free ourselves from being tied to these problems. And then the fourth noble truth is magga. Magga is the way. Magga is the way. There is a way to escape all of this and to find nirvana. Magga is the way, and nirvana is the goal of being free, liberated. In Christianity, we'll call it salvation. In Buddhism, they'll call it to be enlightened, liberation. So those are the Four Noble Truths. Another important Buddhist concept. We've had the three marks of existence, we've got the Four Noble Truths, and now we're going to look, and beyond that, the solution is then you get on to the Eightfold Path, the Noble Eightfold Path. Then is when we get into the ways and means to escape the wheel of life, okay, by looking into the Eightfold Path. Today we're going to look at the Bhava Chakra. The Bhava Chakra is a way of identifying how we enslave ourselves and become bound to the material world around us. That's what this wheel of life is showing. It's showing how we become attached and stuck within this wheel. It's called samsara, if you like. So, the wheel is held by a monster called Yama. Yama represents death. It represents the end of hope. So the wheel is clutching the wheel. The wheel is supposed to be the wheel of impermanence. You can see just the top of it there. I've zoomed into his face there. This is called Yama. And he is controlling the wheel of time, the wheel of life. So we need to free ourselves being bound and enslaved by Yama, i.e. death, life and death, a meaningless cycle of existence. We want to escape this wheel to be free. It's called Yama. It's holding this wheel. Now then, we have, there's the wheel he's holding, right? And in the very middle of the wheel, we have three animals. The very middle of this wheel of life, Bhava Chakra. We have a cockerel. You can see there's a cockerel there. A cockerel, which represents greed and desire. So when we have greed and desire to consume things in the world, greed to consume, to destroy, to control. And he's biting the tail of the snake. The snake represents hatred, spite, envy, jealousy, because of the greed that we have. And the snake is in turn biting that blue animal below, which is represent a boar. A boar is a wild pig, a type of pig. So the pig represents delusion. Why are they biting each other's tails? They're biting each other's tails because it's a perpetual cycle. Greed perpetuates hatred and jealousy. And jealousy, the more we consume, the more we become jealous, and the more we become deluded about what the real beauty and the real way to escape the problems in life is not to consume more and more, not to have greed and selfishness and intolerance and things. And then we get deluded. We get deluded that the more we consume, the more we become, proud and individualize ourselves and create our ego of who we are, the more we deluded we become. It's a cycle. Can't see it very well, but on this side you have black, and so these properties chain us down. We become dragged down in the darkness. We drag ourselves down, causing anxiety, worry, stress, malice, hatred, intolerance, impatience, injustice. We cheat people, we don't plan ahead, we become consumed in this cyclical existence. But there is a solution, and the solution is on the other side. This, you can't see it very well, but it's white, okay? This is, we can ascend into the white. We don't need to fall into the darkness, we can free ourselves into the light. How? You can do this by identifying how these problems in our lives arise. Now there are 12 parts of this wheel, a bit like a clock, but it's not supposed to be a clock. The bit we've just been talking about is right in the center. And now we're going to look at how things arise. I'll be very quick on this, but it is complicated. Okay. So each one of these sections, called a nidana, features a small drawing, and this is how to explain how we get caught in the material world. We don't free ourselves spiritually. Okay. So in the first drawing, we have an old man, which represents he's got to the end of his life, and he hasn't woken up and considered spirituality or been aware of the physical world is illusory, is temporal, it changes, and his to be free of these cycles of suffering. We need to free ourselves from this illusion of the world around us, and understand who we are, where we are, and ourselves in relation to the universe beyond space and time and material possessions. So there's an old man. In the second place, we have a potter, a guy making pots. Now this is called samskara. The second one is the pot, sitting down. Why he's making pots is that he's doing things and he's tying himself to the formation of making the pots. So by making something, by doing something, by involving ourselves in certain things, often we can waste our time in this life in things that are futile, that are meaningless, and we could spend our lives engaged in things and tied down. Now, making pots is arguably a good thing, but in this context, the pot maker in this diagram is there to explain the idea of being bound and caught into activities and things which actually are senseless and meaningless, and our time goes by. Now, when we choose to do something, say it's, for example, making I think of a bad thing. For example, making a record collection or making a music collection on our apps, on our mobiles, originally with records and things, to make a collection of music. Now, the more we get involved, for example, in this hobby, then the next one down we have a monkey in a tree. The monkey in the tree represents consciousness, vijnana. The more we think about making our record collection, for example, or making pots, let's stick to pots. The more we think about making pots and how we do, the more our mind becomes bound to the process of making pots, to forming these pots, the formations of our mind, the formations of making a record collection, the formations of making a collection of clocks, maybe. And then we identify the next one down is called nama rupa, name and form, nama rupa. By name, we mean the subjective name, the idea of something, and the form is the form. So the pots we call pots, the pots we call blue pots. It's our relationship to an object in the world around us. There's two men in a boat. One of the men represents name, i.e. subjective reality, and the form represents objective reality. So we have a mental experience and a physical experience. I can mentally imagine and relate and recall and identify with something beyond what I see around me. We have subjective experience, and then I can physically see something such as my apple, which is a physical thing. So apple, food, eat it, look at it, hold it, it's called an apple, it's red. So the form is round, it's coloured, it's blue, and I'm putting associated values, I'm putting identity onto the object. Now, how am I doing that? The next station down is called Sadayatana, which means the six senses. So it means our eyesight, our eyes, our smell, our sound, sight rather, smell, taste, feeling, and awareness. And it's a building with 6 windows in it, and each window represents one of these faculties of conscious awareness. sensory awareness, should I say. So I can smell the apple. Okay, it's an apple smell. I can feel the apple, it's got a touch to it. I can not hear the apple, but I could drop it or whatever. And I can taste the apple when I eat the apple. So our senses are involved with material things around us. Okay. Now, in this Buddhist sense, it's not a good thing to be engage our physical senses in the physical world, because when we're engaging our physical senses, sight, sound, smell, hearing, touch, whatever, when we engage those senses in meaningless objects around the world, we're binding our mind, we're binding our senses to these phenomenal world. And as I said, in 1 week or 2 weeks, that apple will be gone. It won't exist. So all this time we spend using our life and ourselves and believing and trusting in physical objects around us, when the universe is changing all the time, and very little around you, which you see where you are, will be where you are in 150 years' time. Imagine all the things you have around you now. Where will they be in 150 years' time? Beyond the space of a human life. Well, who knows? So, as we develop this relationship with the physical world around us, the next one, we have spasa. Spasa means contact. We communicate with an object, whether it's this, or whether it's my funnel, or whether it's my tea. We physically have contact with things around us. Spasa. And this then develops into feelings. We develop emotional feelings and attachment to people, to objects, to my apple. I develop an association and feelings it's called Vedana. So feelings is shown by a couple embracing. Contact is shown with a man with an arrow in his eye. And then after a while we develop an appetite for that thing that our sensory feelings and senses have become associated with. We become associated with objects around us in this world. And as we become associated with the objects around us, we develop emotional attachment and feeling to objects, to people, to animals, to things. We develop an emotional attachment to things. In Buddhist eyes, that's not always a good thing, because it can lead to suffering, because the world is impermanent, because our true self is not to be defined by the material world around us. You see, the three marks of existence: suffering, impermanence, and the fact that the material world is not our true self. So there's more, it goes on. The story, it's like a story. So after that, we then have a monkey in a tree, which means we develop a thirst. We develop a thirst for these objects, and then the monkey in the tree signifies we now want more experiences. We want more things like an apple. We want more fruit. We want more and 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 more of things. We start to grasp at this and grasp at that. And when the apple goes, we want another one, and then another one, and we want more of that. And when we finish our wine, then we want another one, another one. And if we're not careful, these habits perpetuate this cycle. We want more and consume and this and that. And as we get in life, we become more and more bound by these processes. The objects around us, we develop a relationship with them, and that develops into feelings. We have contact. We identify ourselves with the objects around us. This is called clutching to the world around us. Now, after the monkey in the tree, we have reproducing. We produce a couple making love. We start to reproduce this whole process of buying things, consuming things, identifying with things, building up our own ego and everything else. We identify with these things. So bhava is we start to reproduce. Bhava, as in bhava chakra, but we reproduce these cycles of problems, of impermanence, of stress and anxiety and false belief in what is true and what is not true, what is real and what is not real, you see. Very complex stuff. Then after that, we have old age. We get older. Life, we get older and older and older, and then we realize, oh, if I only had believed in that when I was younger, or if only I hadn't wasted my time making pots, and this is an example, the pots, the very start. If only I'd started out my life making these pots, and then developed the relationship and developed these feelings and looked at it, tasted it, enjoyed it, or felt it, saw it, and then I touched the pots. You develop all these cyclical, things. So then the last section is death. You die, and then you'll die. You haven't woken up. You haven't gained any liberation. You haven't woken up to the true nature of who you are and the world around you. This is key to the Buddhist wheel of life, or the bhava of becoming. So this wheel explains how our relationship with the world around us can tie us down, can enslave us. They use the word fettered. We become fettered to the material world at the expense of the spiritual realm. So be careful. Be careful when you consume things, you buy things, your clothes, the objects around you, and you want more and more, and you're not happy with that, so you want more, and then you're not happy with that, you want more, and you're never ever happy, because the more you have, the more you want, and the more you want to then pass on to your children, and the more it's a perpetual negative cycle of suffering called dukkha. So we looked at the outer pictures here, and the last one is the death. So it starts. Now, in Tibetan Buddhism, they believe you need to go backwards. To free yourself, you need to go reverse, anti-clockwise direction. You need to avoid death, spiritual death, not waking up and become a Buddha. You need to stop reproducing, stop buying things, turn off your greed, your hate, your anger, your disappointment, and don't worry so much about the material existence around you. Stop clasping, clutching, thinking, wanting, needing. Let go, relax. Most of it is only here for a certain period of time. It's phenomenal, it's temporal, it's only temporary happiness, not fulfilling happiness. Stop grasping. Stop wanting more. Stop engaging with too much things around you. Apple is a good thing, but there are a lot of bad things. Maybe it's drink, it doesn't matter. Let go, disengage with a lot of things in your life. Then you won't have those feelings for those objects. Then going backwards in the tree. You don't need to know what it is. You don't need to identify a name and a form. Nama Rupa, the men in the boat. You don't need to know its name. You don't need to know what it's for. You don't need it. Going back, the monkey in the tree. You're free. Your consciousness doesn't need to know about it. You're free from it, you see? So going back, we're going anti-clockwise now. Then at the beginning, beyond the monkey tree, the man making pots. Let go. Relax. Don't get engaged in so many things in your life. Let go of things. Stop making too many pots. The potter here, there's a potter, as I explained, a man making pots. Okay? See, making pots. Stop making pots. Let go of things. Relax. Chill out. Enjoy the moment. Enjoy what you have. Let go of things. And then when you become an old man, you won't become an old man deluded and in a cycle of delusion. You'll have meaning in your life. You'll be able to have awoken, have some degree of liberation, some degree of understanding. You'll become true, and you won't live the ender part of your physical world, stressed, anxious, ill, and suffering. Because stress, anxiety, not knowing who you are and where you're going, can cause us illness. So to be free from most health problems, to grow old gracefully, and hopefully, to then transcend this life when your physical body dies away. It's complex, right? So this is the central part of I won't go into these other central bits because they're not that important. The main thing is that and the wheel, okay? Remember that this wheel is impermanent, okay? It's held by a monster. It's impermanence. It shows everything is subject to change and flux. So, this is called the Wheel of Life, the Bhava Chakra. And sometimes you may have heard of it called the Dharma Chakra. It seeks to explain how we engage with the physical, material world around us, how it's fleeting, it's temporary, and how we shouldn't put our faith and our hope and our dreams in physical things that are only here for a short time before they fade away and disappear. By understanding this, we then go on. In another episode, I will do the ways and means to escape from this wheel in a more clearer way, looking at the noble eightfold path. The path is a series of steps. Imagine yourself going on a journey, a walk, to get to here, to the shops, to get to the car, to get somewhere. You have to take a series of steps. You won't get there in one step, you get there in many steps. So the eightfold path is a series of 8 steps you need to take to reach a point to be able to free yourself, to be happy, calm, have meaning, to be awoken, to awake yourself, and to be free from all these cycles and things that we get involved in our lives. The cycles referring to the wheel of life. It's more a wheel of suffering. It's how to escape this cyclical nature of the world that we live in. So, this Buddhist diagram is, the ideas expressed here are a major part of Buddhism. Whichever particular branch of Buddhism that you may or may not know of, the Wheel of Life expresses the ideas of the Four Noble Truths. It expresses, the solution, which is then found, the solution to this wheel of suffering is the Eightfold Path. But today what I've done is I've tried to explain to you what the parts of this wheel of becoming are. And so being aware of these ideas here, we can be aware that identifying ourselves, our being, with the physical world around us often will lead to suffering. And so in Buddhism we have the Eightfold Path, which is basically the remedy, the code to break, escape from this wheel of becoming. There is a Sanskrit word I'll leave you with now called Pratyasamutpada. Pratyasamutpada, is the independent arising of phenomenal existence, the way things arise in our lives and everything else. It's an amazing word. Pratsamutpada, the arising of phenomenal existence. I find this diagram very interesting. Just click online, Wheel of Life Buddhism, and you'll get the whole diagram, and you'll be able to relate to these things that I've been talking to you about. Just type it in, and you can refresh yourself on some of these things that I said. But it's a beautiful, fascinating, interesting Buddhist diagram explaining these profound concepts or illustrating these profound concepts. Whether you're a Christian, as I am, or a Hinduist, a Hindu, or Islamist, or whatever, there's no denying that this is a very profound ideas in this wheel of life diagram. I've only touched on the surface of it, but I have looked at the central ideas within this. So I'll let you go. We'll leave it there. But remember, you have the cockerel biting the tail of the snake, biting the tail of the pig, the boar. I've explained what that is, and I've explained what these 12 stations are. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Yeah, there are 12. Each of them with a specific drawing in them, having a specific meaning, which again I've explained to you. The secret would be to undo this causal chain which causes suffering. When I was living in Nepal, I did buy a few of these paintings. So it's a big, glorious painting, and very impressive. I was always profoundly interested by this drawing. So the takeaways are, be careful what you get involved with in your everyday lives. Remember that your true self and identity should not be defined by what people say you are, or feeling you need to achieve that in order to become that, or I need to have that in order to reflect my true self, because your true self is free of material things around you. The takeaway is that there is problems, there is suffering in the world, there is stress, anxiety, death, trauma. There are problems that arise, but we can try to reduce and minimize these problems in our lives by getting involved in less things. The more we get involved with, the more we generate fruit. It's like, what you sow, you reap. When you sow, things grow. So if you stop sowing, if you're with me, if you stop sowing, things won't grow. And so your life will be less complicated and cluttered. If you're able to let things go. Imagine you have a piece of wood and you're sitting beside a stream, a river. You put the piece of wood, your problem, in the stream, in the river, and just let the current take it away. Give up, let go, renounce things, be a renunciate. Let go of so much when your life is too complicated. Of course I'm talking about Buddhist ideas. Of course in Christianity and in Hinduism there are similar but also different ways and means to escape suffering and problems and anxiety and stress for you. Each religion has its own formula, its own solution. I'll leave it there. I hope you've enjoyed this episode as much as I have talking about it. I find this a fascinating diagram, and I look forward to catching up with you in a subsequent podcast. Remember, I'm trying to make these interesting. It's a thinking people's site. Here we're talking about ideas to unlock ourselves, unlock the universe. We're not here, as I say, watching a movie. We're not eating popcorn. And as I famously say, we're not eating chicken wings and feeding yourself popcorn and drinking Coca-Cola and you're watching, like a mummy. No, a mummy. We are here to explore, engage, contemplate, reflect, and enable us to transcend this physical world that we live by engaging in spiritual ideas, things that are not identified necessarily in the physical, phenomenal world around us which we can see. Well, good luck, and click a like if you like this, and if you dislike it, maybe just surrender yourself and click a like anyway. Cheers.